You are now tuned in to Keeping It Real with Sally. Your thoughts, our voice.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of
Keeping It Real
with San and
Your Thoughts.
our voice. So yeah, it's been a minute since our last episode, but should we just tell them a bit of our disappearance or not? I feel like we should.
I think we should too.
I feel like this time of the year it can get quite hectic in university because of exams and the semester tests that are happening towards the end of the year. So it got quite busy on our side of things, but we decided that in the midst of the busyness, we make time to shoot more content for our channel because it is something that we are passionate about and we enjoy doing. So it just didn't feel right to kind of disappear in thin air and never come back to doing what we came here to do. So without further ado, let's get to this topic that we're going to be discussing, which is breaking generational curses. It's quite a big topic because it is a topic that not many people speak often about, out loud. So it is something we did want to share with you guys from a personal standpoint, and also something that we feel like we need to speak more on when it comes to the interactions that we have with people nowadays.
True, because at the end of the day, energy is very contagious, behaviors are very contagious. So the way you treat someone, does to a certain degree affect the way they perceive a lot of things and the way they begin to treat other people. Kind of like the saying, hurt people hurt. So it's like what a person constantly receives will at some point in time be what they give out eventually.
Yeah, and it does come from the things that we learn at home, which is probably where most generations kind of stem from, if not all generational curses. So before we get into all of that, let's just first lay down the foundation of what is a generational curse.
Yeah, well, everybody is going to have their own point of view and understanding of a generational curse. But to me personally, a generational curse is like something that we've been accustomed to, like we've seen in our upbringing, and that it's been so regular in our lifestyles that we've kind of perceived it as the norm. And to certain degrees, it has sometimes unconsciously become the way that we also behave ourselves and the way that we present ourselves to the world. For example, if you grew up in a household with a certain kind of environment, that environment to a certain degree will naturally gravitate towards how your environment in the future will become. And not all home environments are positive. Not all home environments have the best impact on us as children growing up. And therefore, it's like we naturally gravitate towards treating our children and the people around us the same. And, it just becomes a continuous cycle. And that's why it's referred to as a generational curse, because it's from generation to generation to generation.
Yeah, I feel like that I can't top that, honestly. It's pretty a solid way of looking at it, because a lot of generational curses are negative. They negatively impact you. They never negatively impact, the people around you. And it's just like this cycle that just keeps going from generation to generation. And you end up asking yourself, when is it going to stop? And a lot of people would want to, the cycle needs to end with them. So yeah, I feel like the key thing in trying to break your generational cycle is identifying what it is and acknowledging what it is, because I feel like a lot of people are oblivious or in denial or just genuinely don't know what the generational cycle is, or understand that it is a real thing, for people to be having generational cycles where you are predestined to fail in a certain aspect of your life. For example, substance abuse, where say your parent is one of your parents abuses substances, maybe has an alcohol problem, and then you come from a family of like maybe three siblings and one of them is also a drinker, and then you just feel like it's a cycle that's just going to continue and fall onto your children, your children's children, and you just there like you don't really want that for yourself or your children. And so I want the cycle to end with me. So acknowledging that, okay, my family has a problem with alcohol, like abuse, or substance abuse rather. This is the steps that I can take towards kind of overcoming that.
Yeah, true. And what you said is key. Like the first step to overcoming generational curses is acknowledging that, there is a problem, there is a cycle that is negatively impacting us as, this family that we are in, whether it's from my parents or me personally, or it's also impacting the way I treat my children. For example, if you have children and you're at that point in time where you do have children. And I feel like once you acknowledge it and see that it's something that is there, then only can you like take steps and measures to actually like rectify that issue and that problem and, break out of that cycle.
Yeah, so what would you say is your generational curse, like that you've experienced or you witnessed somebody close to experience, and how has it impacted them yourself?
For me, like I feel like one of the biggest generational curses that I feel like a lot of people can resonate with is support systems. Sometimes we grow or we are in families that don't really have the most, supporting like behaviors. For example, like, if you have dreams or you have goals or you have things that necessarily that don't align with the way your parents like perceive the world and perceive the way you should be behaving, they can sometimes tend to shut it down, and therefore they can constantly make you feel like, like nothing I ever do or nothing I ever come up with is good enough. Because as children, we often do naturally gravitate towards wanting our parents, like approvals and respect and, support in things that we want to do in our life. And I feel like if you don't have the right support structure, that does break you mentally in perceiving the things that you are capable of doing, but it also just breaks your overall like motivation and spirits, because you feel like no matter what you do, it's always going to be seen from a negative point of view and it's always going to be shut down. And I feel like as a child, the most important thing that we need as like children growing up is a support system where we feel like we are valued, respected, guided whenever we lose like a sense of direction, and overall just giving that push to say like, regardless of what you do, I'm going to be here, I'm going to support you, I'm going to love you through that, and even if it's not successful, I'll still be proud of the fact that you attempted something outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I feel like that is like the most crucial part in like somebody's life, like having somebody or people that believe in you and believe in your dreams and your goals, because not having that support system and you not providing it within yourself can be quite detrimental, because it does destroy dreams. Like people conform to this normality of working a 9 to 5, whereas deep down that that's not necessarily something you want to do for the rest of your life. You have bigger dreams than that, but because of the lack of support that comes from externally and internally within yourself, you kind of believe the idea of your dreams are kind of impossible to achieve, and because of that you suppress yourself, you suppress the person that you are, and your dreams, your goals, because you feel like it's unrealistic to achieve, because there's no one else cheering you on by your side. It can be something as simple as playing the piano. You want to be like the world's best piano player, for example, and that requires obviously training, like going for lessons and attending maybe events like in theater, for example. I don't know like the specifics of it, but basically putting in time, effort, and money if need be, and just having somebody to by your side constantly encourage you to pursue your dream no matter how hard it gets. And eventually, like in most cases, you do end up achieving your dream in such instances. Like a lot of celebrities nowadays like actors, for instance, they have had training from quite a young age, attending like acting classes, and you know, being exposed to it at a young age. The parents having to encourage them to do those things because they believed in them, they believed in their dream, and hence where they are now. So that's why I'm saying it's quite important to sort of break that generational cycle, not just only for yourself, but for your children and your children's children.
Exactly, because one of the most important things that you can ever do for your child is to be present. Just be present, remind them that you're there, and support them in whichever way that you can support them, because that gives them room for them to know that even if I fail, I will still be supported, I'll still be loved. And once anybody has that mindset of like, regardless of whether I fail or succeed, I'm still going to be good, it becomes limitless to the things that they can achieve in the future and in their life overall.
Yeah, I feel like that is true, honestly. And I feel like this is something that should be normalized, especially in our culture, because, this is like a very good example of something money can't buy. Like, money can't buy love, but it can't buy support either. You don't, like, even if you may not have the means to support your child's dream, just simply being there for them, supporting them, showing up, something as simple as that will mean a lot to them. Give them the motivation that they need to pursue their dream or their goals, whatever it is that they want to achieve. And I feel like it's something that's not often spoken about, not just within our families, but in our communities.
True.
Because it's very easy to put someone down, but it's not really easy to support somebody,
pick someone up.
And pick someone up. Yes, in you also trying to uplift yourself, because I feel like it's also a two-way street. Like, I believe in you, you believe in me, we believe in each other. And I feel like it goes back to the generational cycle thing, where like your parent doesn't give you the support that you need. Maybe it's because when they were growing up, they didn't get the support that they needed either. And it goes back to the saying of what my co-host said, like, hurt people hurt, and it could come from, that whole thing. You may never know. And even if you may be victim to this kind of generational curse, like, just know that you do have the power to stop it. You can be your own support system, and you can achieve anything you set your mind to. You don't need that external validation other than yourself.
Exactly. And for you, what would you say is like another generational curse that you feel like a lot of people encounter, or you yourself have encountered?
I would say being independent, like a female independent, like sole provider, like a female breadwinner, yeah. Because like growing up, my dad didn't work like a steady job that produced income like on a monthly basis. It was a now and again thing. And then my mom obviously worked a full 9 to 5 job where there was steady income, and off of that she was the female family breadwinner. And it's not something that you see like often happening. It's usually the male that's the breadwinner, or both parents. But in my case, it was my mom. So I grew up with that mentality of, she can do it all, and I also can do it all. Like, I don't need a man to kind of provide for my needs. I don't need a man to provide for my kids' needs. I can do it myself. And there comes like good things with it and bad things with it. Good things in the sense that you're not dependent on anyone to provide for your needs. You are able to stand up and work for yourself and be financially independent and emotionally independent, etc. But then another thing that comes with that is it's an extreme. So having to depend on somebody like your partner or anyone else for support, it's a really difficult thing for you to do, because you're used to just being that person for yourself. And the thing is, you're not going to always have your things together. Like, you're not going to have your life together. There may be times where you may experience hardships and you need that support. But because you're so used to like doing it all by yourself, it's very hard to reach out to somebody and ask for that support that you need. So you end up drowning because you're too prideful to ask for such help, and you end up being in a bad place. And it takes a lot of humility and courage to kind of overcome that generational cycle of you can do it all, because you're not an island as a human being. Like, you need people, you need like support from others, and if it's there, take it, because not everybody's fortunate to have that support, like standing there waiting for them, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And like with regards to what you just said, it actually sparked the thought in my head of like it actually goes both ways. Like what you said, this whole like what you're accustomed to like from growing up is that if one specific gender like dominates the other, or if one gender is like the sole breadwinner, then it subconsciously makes you feel like that's the same way that it should be for me. We naturally gravitate towards that because that's what you experience like in your upbringing. And I feel like it's also common with males when, for example, we're in a family where the father, the dad is the breadwinner, and it's like our norm, like the man should always be the one providing, the man should be the one that sets the tone of the household. However, it's like it is normal for roles to be reversed, and it is natural for roles to be reversed. So I feel like we shouldn't have this one size fits all of like the man needs to be the provider. If it's not the man, then there's an imbalance in the household. Or for example, if the woman is the breadwinner, then it just needs to be like that through and through. And we need to leave room for balance where it can be both the man and the woman that are both participating to the upbringing of the household and to the finances of the household. And it's also possible that roles can be reversed for like the woman and for the man. And I feel like we should just naturally be open-minded towards that aspect, and also be realistic. If you are in a position where you cannot be the breadwinner, then accept that that's currently your state, and don't force something that's not there, because at the end of the day, you're just going to make yourself look terrible, and you're just going to negatively impact your family. So I feel like it's very important for us to keep an open mind when it comes towards the whole like gender dominance, and who should be the leader of the house and who should be the breadwinner, and overall that aspect of ruling the household.
Yeah, I feel like with that there comes gender expectations with being a breadwinner. For example, as a female breadwinner, or even a male breadwinner, like if you're a breadwinner in your household and there's kids, like there's this kind of mentality of like what you say goes, like you calling the shots because you have the means to provide, and everybody else should just like obey, and I feel like to a certain degree that may be true, but to a larger degree it isn't, because respect doesn't come with money. Like you don't respect someone because they have money. Like, I mean, respect is something that's within your character. It's not within what you have.
Exactly.
So in the case of a breadwinner, a married couple, for instance, like going back to my situation at home, my dad would have struggled with the idea of my mom being the sole provider of, the household, to the extent that, now and again they'd argue because he'd feel like inferior as a man. He'd feel less than a man because he wasn't able to provide for his family. Whether that came from external factors of like his friends making fun of him, I don't know, or himself like internally thinking like with the idea of, as a man you need to provide for your family. And sometimes that's not often, like you're not often fortunate to be in that position, and coming like to terms with that reality can be very difficult in itself. And then now obviously having to depend on your wife, to provide for you and the kids. It's not an easy thing to go through, but at the same time, like it is possible through communication. You can contribute to that household, in ways outside of money. There's no need for you to feel inferior because you don't have money per se, or materialistic things. And I feel like that's something that should be talked about often, amongst, people. even if the roles were reversed, like the male as the breadwinner. Like I feel like females, even if they were not to see themselves as inferior, because that's ideally what some females would want, to just be a housewife and to be taken care of by the male breadwinner. But like I said, going back to my initial point, that ego, pride, and all of those things need to be pushed like aside in these instances, because not everybody, like I said, is fortunate to be in a position where they're able to provide for their family, especially in the current like situation in our country of unemployment. And it's also very rare to come across two people who have steady incomes and they're able to contribute equally, because I feel like sometimes the other, like someone like me, initially would have had an issue with that because I'm used to doing everything myself. But I've kept an open mindset when it comes to that, whether I have a partner who's equally contributing, whether I'm contributing the most or he is, like either way I'm okay with it.
Yeah, exactly, because last thing you want is to have a clash of egos, and that just creates a natural toxic environment, and that is something that your children and other people around you are going to be exposed to, and they will suck it all up, because at the end of the day, children mimic what they see, and they also mimic their parents a lot, which is why it's always emphasized as parents to be careful, like how you speak, how you behave around children. So if your kids naturally see you like behaving in a certain way, then the child's gonna be like, okay, then I guess that's a normal or an okay behavior because I've seen my dad do it, or I think that's fine, normalized behavior because I've seen my mom do it. So it's very important to always keep pride and ego out of the equation when working together as people, and especially when having a household, because last thing you want to do is be the cause of a child's generational curse, because maybe you might not have that generational curse, but you might cause your children to have it, because they're gonna come up with that thought process, and then they're gonna try to express it into their family, their children, and then we've just created a whole new brand new cycle.
Remember the other day we were at the casino and we weren't really gonna gamble, do anything serious there, and I was telling you how I've seen a lot of TV shows where like say the husband of like the family, they don't work but the wife does and she's the breadwinner, so he would like literally come to the casino like with his wife's money, like, or whatever money he may have hustled on the street, and then gamble it away in the hopes of like making more money. And like we just talk about the gambling addiction in general, like how addictive it can be. And I feel like if you're somebody who is in denial about such situation, like you kind of expose yourself to the desperation of getting yourself out of that position, whether it's through side hustling, gambling, more towards the like illegal sides of things, kind of like you get rich quick schemes, to kind of get money quickly so that you kind of prove a point, like, oh, I can also provide, or I also have my own money. I don't need you, to provide for me, kind of stroking your own ego and stroking like your own pride, because you are in denial about the fact that you are in a situation where you are unable to provide not only for yourself but for your family. And going back to what Michael said, it's just very important for you to be okay with whatever circumstance that you may be faced with, and obviously communication is key within your family, about such circumstances and such generational curses in the family, especially when it's like going towards substance abuse, for instance, and other things, because those things are quite detrimental not only to the person that's dealing with the issue but the people around them. And the last thing you want is to be the cause of a generational curse, or like a carrier of this generational curse, but rather come together as a family to talk about it and figure out a way to end it.
Yeah, I feel like that beautifully summarized everything with regards to gender, expectations and just gender dominance in relationships and in households. But I feel like for me personally, another generational curse that I also bring up is the whole lackage of explanation or conversating as parents with children. Because as parents, like I'm sure we've encountered it a lot, where our parents will say something and then we'll ask like why, and they'll be like, oh, just because I said it, and that's that. And it's like whenever we left with a like question mark at the end of a statement, it kind of leaves us in limbo, and it leaves people desiring to want to find out the answers to that question mark. And that sometimes causes a whole nother like pathway that could have been easily avoided if parents or adults just were willing to speak with children and actually like explain things thoroughly to them. For example, if I say like don't like participate in substances like intake, and if a child is like why, then show them like the negative effects of like participating in such activities, and inform them so that they're able to make informed decisions for themselves, and they are well educated with regards to certain things, rather than to just be like, don't do that because I said so, and that's that, because it always leaves us questioning everything that we've just heard, and it always leaves us wanting more answers to regards what we've just been told. And like I said, that always leads to a path that could have been easily avoided if it were just explained to certain things and communicated with.
Yeah, something as silly as don't put your hand on the stool. You're like, why? Because I said so. So you being you as a child, you're gonna wanna know the why. So what you're gonna do? Put your hand on the stove. And then what happens? You get burnt and you cry. And your parent comes and be like, see, I told you, don't put your hand on the stove. Whereas that could have been easily avoided if you just told me, I'm gonna get burnt, or at least show me a picture of what a burnt hand looks like. So I know in future, not to do it, because I don't want to look like that. Same thing like substance abuse. Don't drink underage, for instance. Why? Because I said so. What you gonna do? Drink,
Exactly.
Go out of your way to get the alcohol underage still. And before you know it, you drunk. You have a hangover the next day. Whereas your parents, again, could have easily avoided this by showing you, hey, this is what a drunk person looks like. This is what a high person looks like. Do you want to look like that? No. So that's one of the key things about that. But obviously, like in this day and age, not everyone has a parent, not everyone has a guardian or someone looking up for them to be telling them these things. So I do sympathize with those people that kind of have to figure their way around everything. I feel like I've had to figure my way out around those things because of this mentality of like, don't do this. Why? Because I said so, or because it's wrong, and it's like, that's not good enough because I still don't understand. And when you just speak, like if you kind of talk back to your parents, like that's kind of disrespectful to them. And so the conversation just ends there because you kind of get into a fight. Last thing you want is to fight with your parents. So it just ends there. So now you go behind their back and like do all those things they told you not to do because you want to know why they're so against it so much. Are they jealous? Like is there something like
creates a sense of like rebellion.
Yeah,
it makes you want to rebel when
even
you feel
more
like you just forced into something without necessarily understanding why that is the case. And necessarily like explaining something to someone doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to happen. Don't be like, oh well, I explained the outcome of this to my child or to somebody, therefore they're not going to do it. They still very much could possibly do it, but at least you have a clear conscience of saying, I said my piece. I tried to educate them as much as I could about that specific topic. It was on them, whatever happened after that. So it's like, and especially like as parents or as adults, we tend to underestimate like the thinking process of people younger than us, and we tend to like underestimate the ability for people to comprehend information. We feel like, oh, what am I going to talk about with a child? Like, they're not even going to understand me. They're not even going to hear what I'm trying to say to them. But it's like sometimes, it's good to leave room for giving someone the benefit of the doubt, because you never know, like in actually expressing their thoughts and things at a much grander scale, how like the child or someone younger than you can actually interpret that and what difference it could make to them, the way they behave in their lives and their thinking process overall.
Yeah. So I feel like, this idea of protecting your child, putting them in a bubble, like at all costs, does kind of destroy them in a way, because it's like they're used to living in a safety bubble. Once they are exposed to like the real world,
They go crazy.
they do the most basically, and they just feel like this is totally out of the comfort zone, and before they know it, they end up in a situation that is very difficult to come back from, because they weren't necessarily exposed to these things that they were being told constantly to stay away from.
Exactly. And it's like one thing about living in a bubble is that when that bubble explodes, it's either you underprepared for life or you too over prepared, in a sense where you just want to go and do everything and double dabble in everything that you possibly can. And when you're underprepared, it means that you fear life outside of the bubble and you try to reconstruct your own bubble so that you can feel secure and comfortable again. And it's like anybody who approaches life with that mindset automatically like limits themselves to a lot of things, because they feel like if they were to step out of the bubble, the worst would happen. The world would just consume them as a whole. But it is very important to also give children and also people room for them to grow and develop and learn things for themselves, as much as it is important to also try and keep them away from those things.
Yeah, so it's not always a bad idea to expose your children to things early, like having these conversations about sex, for instance, at a very young age, because puberty happens, and just it's very easy for a child to be exposed to external things a lot younger these days with advanced technology. So it's just better for you as a parent or guardian, a family member, to educate a young child about these things before they get all these external kind of ideas of sex, for instance, that is like completely like unrealistic and not the truth about sex, for instance. Because something as simple as sex, like in school, it's like don't do it, abstinence, contraceptives, like jalo jalo, and it's like you're curious about it, but you don't know who to talk to. But now you start getting external ideas from friends, from the internet, and it's like you don't know what to believe until you actually experience it. And all of this, again, could have just easily been avoided or minimized had you have had somebody in your family or someone you trust talk to you about these things, somebody who has your best interest at heart. Because something like this, and also like substance abuse and the other examples we mentioned earlier, like it's not going to impact everyone the same, so you just have the knowledge about it and see how you navigate those things in a way that benefits you.
Yeah, that's true. So more of the story is communicate and always try to get your message across as clearly as possible, because that message that you could be keeping away from a youngster or your child can determine the path that they take in the future.
Yeah, it really does.
For me, that was another generational cycle, because I feel like it happens a lot. For you, you have another one?
There's just so many, but we don't want this video to be like extremely long.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this video is to obviously educate you guys, if you don't know about it already, about this idea of a generational curse, how it impacts people and ourselves, and the steps that you've taken or would want to take to overcome it, and rise above it, basically.
Exactly. And another reason that we wanted to do this video was because a lot of people are unconscious to generational cycles and curses, because they're so accustomed to it that it's become their norm that they don't even realize that it has actually impacted them the way it actually has reality to a certain degree. So another reason we wanted to take up this podcast and this conversation was so that people are actually able to think and look within and see if do they feel like they have any generational cycles? And once they acknowledge those, I feel like then they can take the steps in there to break out of them so that everything is more positive and the livelihood of the children also will be more positive. And I feel like it's important to just understand that the way we carry ourselves doesn't impact us only, but it always like impacts the people that are around us. And it's even worse when there's children in the picture.
Yeah, so without so in conclusion, sorry, in conclusion, we're just saying what my goes just say. Like I can't really top that. And yeah, with that, we hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as to what you'd like to see next, or comment about this topic and how it impacts you, or has impacted you, how you've overcome it, and just spread the word out there, because it is obviously a very deep topic, an interesting topic, and we'd like to hear everyone's feedback. And until next time,
that's it from us, guys.
We're signing out.
Peace
And love.